In the vast and indifferent cosmic ocean, where stars are born and die in a galactic blink, are we truly unique? Was there a time, in forgotten ages, when humanity, with its audacity and ingenuity, shaped the very fabric of the universe? Or is our existence merely a brief and insignificant whisper, destined to be lost in the echo of billions of light years? Prepare yourselves, for today we will unveil a long-dormant legend, a saga of pride, fall, and the most improbable rebirth the cosmos has ever witnessed. What happens when the last spark of a glorious civilization is reignited, and what does it mean to be human when you are against all odds? If you, like us, feel the flame of cosmic curiosity and admiration for great stories, leave your like, share this video with your sci-fi loving friends, comment your theories, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our epic journeys. Imagine a universe without the vibrant presence of humanity. A cosmos that, for countless millennia, had known the roar of our star fleets, the genius of our inventions, and the indomitable will to defy limits. For a long time, the stars were our playgrounds and the confines of the galaxy, our neighbors. Our cities spanned entire planets, our deeds echoed across all known civilizations, and our pioneering spirit was both admired and feared. We were the race that dared to challenge the impossible, that transformed adversity into triumph, and that, somehow, always found a way. But, like everything in the universe, even the most resplendent glory finds its twilight. A cataclysmic event, a threat that not even our utmost ingenuity could fully deter, swept most of humanity into cosmic dust. It wasn't a war in the traditional sense, nor an alien plague. It was something more insidious, more fundamental, that destabilized the very fabric of our existence. Our great cities became silent ruins, our star fleets, rusted specters adrift in the void, and the once vibrant chorus of humanity dwindled to a distant lament. However, amidst the near-total annihilation, a daring plan was forged, a final sacrifice to ensure that the flame of humanity, however faint, would never be completely extinguished. Scientists and strategists, with the accumulated wisdom of millennia, selected a single individual. Not the strongest, nor the smartest, but one whose resilience and adaptability represented the true essence of humanity. His name was Elias Vance. He would not be a fugitive, but a guardian. A symbol. His destiny, to be frozen in stasis, a living time capsule, suspended in an orbital vacuum millions of light years from any inhabited planet. Elias's stasis ship was designed to be undetectable, a phantom in the cosmos, programmed to emerge only when conditions were, theoretically, safe. He would be the last repository of human memory, a living reminder of our glory and our threat. But why a threat? Because humanity's legacy was not just one of advancements and beauty, it was also one of indomitable ferocity, of an adaptability that bordered on miraculous, and of a will to survive that, to many other species, seemed irrationally dangerous. As human civilization disintegrated around him, Elias's sleep began. A sleep that would last eons, while the cosmos continued its indifferent dance. Billions of stars would be born and die, alien empires would rise and fall, and the universe would slowly forget the name of humanity. But Elias Vance, the last guardian, with the DNA and memory of an entire species encapsulated within his being, waited. A chilling whisper of time, promising an awakening that would change everything again. For eons, darkness reigned, and Elias Vance's sleep was deep, unbreakable. But time, relentless and unyielding, never stops. At a distant point in the void, his ship's artificial intelligence, programmed with the last remnants of human knowledge, detected a rare cosmic alignment, a confluence of energies that indicated a period of relative stability in the galactic quadrant. It was the sign. A digital whisper echoed through the ship's depths, breaking the millennial silence. The cryogenic systems, once cold and inert, began to hum with a subtle buzz, the sound of life reigniting. Slowly, painfully, Elias began to emerge. Every cell in his body reanimated, fighting the lethargy of a sleep that had spanned ages. The pain was a sharp symphony, but behind it, the memory. Images and sensations of a distant past, of a vibrant and powerful civilization, flooded his mind. Family, friends, glittering cities, the wonders of human technology, all surfaced, a whirlwind of glory and loss. The weight of being the last guardian of all that was overwhelming, a burden he felt in every fiber of his being. His eyes opened to the cold darkness of space, dotted with unknown stars and nebulae he had never seen. The universe Elias knew was gone. New constellations adorned the sky, formed by the movement of billions of stars over time. The once familiar star routes had become unintelligible labyrinths, and the alien empires that were once mere footnotes in human history now dominated vast stretches of the galaxy. They were the new giants, the heirs of a cosmos that humanity had seemingly abandoned. The ship's AI, with its synthetic, calm voice, began transmitting data. Light years of information compressed into mere instants, the dominant empires, their technologies, their social hierarchies, their weaknesses, and their strengths. Elias absorbed it all, knowledge that was both fascinating and terrifying. He discovered that humanity was now a legend, a myth. To the older races, we were a distant memory of a power that almost subjugated them, to the younger ones, just a fable of indomitable creatures that inhabited the edge of the known universe. But the most surprising revelation was that, amidst the annihilation, a handful of humans had survived. Not in an organized way, not as a civilization, but as ghosts hidden in the shadows of the cosmos. Small, isolated groups, living on the fringes of galactic society, passing unnoticed, fearing the revelation of their true nature. They were the hidden ones, the last hope of a race on the verge of complete extinction. Elias Vance, the echo of a glorious past, was not alone. And his existence, his awakening, was a sign. A sign for him and for those who were waiting in the dark, the call for the rebirth of a glory that the cosmos had strived to forget. The question that hung in the air was, how would he find these last remnants of humanity? And more importantly, how would he convince these lost souls to embrace their legacy and fight for a future that seemed impossible? Elias's awakening was only the first step. The true journey began now, finding the last vestiges of humanity. The AI data was clear, these humans did not live in colonies, but in isolated pockets, each a scattered fragment of a millennial tapestry. They were clandestine miners in asteroid belts, nomadic traders who blended among alien races, maintenance engineers on foreign fleets, even recluses on icy moons, hiding their lineage as a deadly secret. For generations, their survival depended on remaining invisible, on adapting, and on erasing any trace of their original identity. They were the hidden children of the stars, and fear was their constant companion. Elias knew that the challenge would not only be locating them but also convincing them. How to approach souls who had learned to distrust everything, who had been raised under the veil of paranoia and the denial of their own roots. Many were not even fully aware of their legacy, knowing only fragments of whispered stories, myths about a great civilization that had existed before they went into hiding. The concept of a reconquest, of a resurrection, would be terrifying, perhaps even insane. Using his ship's vast, albeit outdated, data libraries, Elias began his search. He couldn't simply announce his presence, that would be a disaster. Instead, he used a subtle approach. With the limited resources of his centuries-old ship, he sent coded signals through obscure communication channels, ancient frequencies that perhaps only a human remnant could recognize. These were brief messages, fragments of music, poetry, or mathematical codes that echoed humanity's lost glory. A call to consciousness, a whisper of home. The response came slowly, cautiously. First, a faint signal from a remote asteroid, then another from a cargo ship on forgotten trade routes. Small groups, curious and suspicious, began to track the origin of these enigmatic signals. When first contact was made, the surprise was palpable. Most expected a trick, an alien trap. But what they found was Elias Vance, a man with the weight of time in his eyes, but with an unyielding flame that ignited hope. His authority did not come from a rank or a fleet, but from his very being. He was a living link to the glorious past they only knew through legends. Elias offered no empty promises, he offered the truth. He spoke of the fall, of the sacrifice, and of the promise he represented. He showed them the simulations, the records, the images of a humanity that was anything but weak and hidden. He awakened in them not only the memory of who they were but also the indignation of who they could be again. It was not an easy process. There was fear, resistance, skepticism. But Elias, with his patience and the undeniable strength of his conviction, broke down the barriers. He showed them that they were not just survivors, but heirs. Heirs of a lineage that had conquered the stars and was destined to do so again. The seed of rebirth was planted, and the hidden children of the stars began to remember who they truly were. With the first human remnants gathered, Elias Vance found not an army, but a collection of skeptical, traumatized, and in many cases, frightened souls. They had survived by blending in, by being too small to be noticed, by avoiding any confrontation. Convincing them to abandon this stealthy survival mentality in favor of an audacious reconquest was a Herculean task. However, Elias possessed something they did not, the institutional memory of a race that had faced and overcome the impossible countless times. He did not impose his leadership but earned it. In secret meetings, in makeshift hideouts in distant asteroid belts and abandoned cargo ships, Elias shared the true history of humanity. He projected images and simulations of our floating cities, our imposing star fleets, our scientific advancements that made alien miracles seem like parlor tricks. He showed them the fire that burned in the heart of every human, the flame of adaptability, ingenuity, and brutal resilience that made us unique and, to aliens, so dangerous. Slowly, the spark began to ignite. A young engineer, who for years hid his intellect by working on alien maintenance ships, was the first to be inspired. He began redesigning systems, optimizing technologies with an efficiency that aliens couldn't even dream of. A former merchant, who used her charisma to navigate dangerous markets, proved to be a master of logistics and diplomacy, capable of acquiring resources without raising suspicion. The hidden ones began to rediscover their latent abilities, the DNA of a conquering race awakening in their hearts. The first step toward reconquest was not a grand battle, but a series of audacious and subversive actions. Elias, with his historical knowledge of human tactics and the AI's information on the weaknesses of alien empires, orchestrated small coups. Not to cause mass destruction, but to destabilize, to sow discord, and to undermine the confidence of the oppressors. They sabotaged supply chains, diverted important ship routes, implanted viruses in communication systems. And all this without leaving a trace, without revealing their true identity. One of the first great feats was the silent invasion of Xylos. Xylos was a mining outpost of one of the dominant empires, considered impenetrable. The humans, using their incredible adaptability, infiltrated not with brute force, but with intelligence. They disguised themselves as other low-ranking species, used forgotten maintenance tunnels, and silently diverted vital resources, replacing them with lower-value minerals. When the deception was discovered, the Empire was perplexed. How could such a massive operation have been carried out without any detection? The answer was simple: the human mind, underestimated for ages. Every small victory, every act of subversion, reinforced the belief in these reluctant humans. They were no longer just survivors, they were becoming architects of a new era. The fear that once paralyzed them began to transform into determination and a growing pride. Elias Vance was not just gathering a people, he was reigniting the very soul of humanity, transforming the fragments of a civilization into a rebel spark that would soon become an uncontrollable blaze. The first skirmishes, silent sabotages, and logistical coups had planted the seed of doubt in the minds of alien empires. They were accustomed to open wars, colossal fleets, and brute force demonstrations. The subtlety and unpredictability of human tactics were an enigma to them. How do you fight an enemy that does not reveal itself, that does not follow known rules of battle, and that seems capable of unraveling their best-kept secrets with disconcerting ease? For alien intelligences, driven by cold logic or rigid hierarchies, the human mind, with its chaotic creativity and unprecedented adaptability, was an aberration, a paradox to be feared. Elias Vance knew that the guerrilla phase had a limit. It was time to escalate, to demonstrate that humanity was not just a nuisance, but a resurgent force. With each new contact, more humans, inspired by whispers of victory and the mythical figure of Elias, joined the cause. They brought with them not only their skills but also fragments of forgotten technology, engineering knowledge that humanity had mastered before its decline. From alien scrap and improvised components, humans, led by awakened engineers, began reconfiguring their small cargo and mining ships into improvised, yet surprisingly effective, combat vessels. The next target was a strategically vital orbital command post, belonging to the HFY coalition, one of the most militarized and arrogant empires in the galaxy. They considered it impregnable. But humans, under Elias's guidance, would not attack head-on. Their strategy was a complex orchestration of distraction, infiltration, and disinformation. While small fleets of modified human ships made lightning attacks on less defended points, drawing attention away from the true objective, an infiltration team, using disguises and the incredible human capacity for improvisation, penetrated the internal defenses. The goal was not to destroy, but to paralyze and humiliate. The team disabled primary communication systems, reconfigured automated defenses to fire on friendly targets, and, in the most audacious act, broadcast a message to all HFY coalition frequencies. It was not a threat, but a simple phrase in a universal language: the roar of humanity echoes again. The message was accompanied by historical images of human glory, before the fall, briefly projected on the control screens of enemy fleets. Chaos erupted. Coalition ships, blind and disorganized, began fighting among themselves. The message, and the images of human deeds, generated not only confusion but a primal fear. That race they believed extinct or harmless was back, and seemed to have an unparalleled understanding of their weaknesses. The command post was not destroyed, but it was inoperable for weeks, and the HFY coalition's confidence in its own invincibility crumbled. For alien species, the incomprehension of humanity was their greatest terror. They operated by logic, by hierarchy, by brute force. Humanity, however, operated by intuition, by creativity, by a terrifying ability to turn weakness into strength and disadvantage into opportunity. Elias and his few remaining humans were not just warriors, they were ghosts of the past, re-emerging from the shadows to remind them that when humanity fell, it did not stay down. It rose, stronger, more ingenious, and more determined than ever. The cosmos was beginning to feel the terror that came with the return of the unpredictable. With the HFY coalition in disarray, the rumor spread like a cosmic wildfire: the humans are back. It was a whisper of horror for the empires that had grown accustomed to their absence and a cry of hope for the oppressed races who, for ages, dreamed of the downfall of their tyrants. Elias Vance and his growing followers could no longer operate in the shadows. Discretion had served its purpose, now it was time for humanity to reassert its presence in the cosmos. The rise of the Phoenix was not a single event, but a series of coordinated campaigns that demonstrated not only human combat capability but also their mastery of psychological warfare tactics and their boundless ingenuity. The improvised human ships, once floating scrap, were transformed into true works of combat engineering art, incorporating stolen and modified alien technologies with the peculiar, human twist, making them faster, more efficient, and often more lethal than their original counterparts. One of the most decisive moments was the Battle of Solara, a strategic star system that was a resource hub for the Cthar Empire, known for its brutality and numerical superiority. The Cthar expected a direct confrontation, a clash of fleets. But Elias had a different plan, drawn from ancient human war manuals. Instead of attacking the Cthar fleet head-on, the humans used their speed and agility to outflank and disable the system's refueling stations and orbital defense platforms, leaving the gigantic enemy fleet without supplies and exposed. When the Cthar finally tried to engage, they were surprised by hit-and-run tactics they had never encountered. The smaller, more maneuverable human ships dodged massive attacks, aimed at the weak points of the enormous Cthar vessels, and disappeared before they could be cornered. Frustration and panic spread among the aliens. Their iron discipline disintegrated under human unpredictability. To top it off, the humans activated a network of interference drones that simulated multiple attacks at different points in the system, creating the illusion of a much larger fleet than it actually was. The victory at Solara was not just military, it was a victory of perception. Alien empires began to see humanity not just as a resurgent threat, but as a tactical nightmare. The fear they felt of humans was not the fear of an overwhelming force, but the fear of something they could not comprehend, something that broke their logic and subverted their expectations. They could not predict human movements, nor decipher their deeper motivations beyond simple survival. To them, humanity was a creative cancer, a dangerous anomaly. This perception was the catalyst. Small oppressed races, who once bowed to the dominant empires, began to look to humans as saviors, or at least, as catalysts for their own liberation. Improbable alliances were forged, based on mutual respect for resilience and admiration for human audacity. Humanity was not just reconquering its space, it was reorganizing the balance of power in the galaxy, proving that, even on the brink of extinction, the flame of human glory could not only be reborn from the ashes but illuminate the way to a new future. The rise of the Phoenix was complete. There was no single, final battle where the fate of the galaxy was decided. Instead, it was a crescendo of tactical victories, astute diplomacy, and an unquestionable demonstration of the unwavering human will to thrive. Elias Vance, the last guardian, became more than a leader, he became a symbol, a living legend who personified humanity's resilience and ambition. The few humans he had found hidden in the shadows now formed the heart of a new civilization, one that had learned from the mistakes of the past and emerged stronger, more united, and terrifyingly more cunning. The alien empires that once dominated the cosmos now found themselves at a disadvantage. Their arrogance had given way to forced respect, and the fear they felt of humans was a mix of terror and fascination. They had witnessed a race that, on its knees and on the brink of extinction, not only rose but innovated, adapted, and subverted every expectation. Human tactics, their focus on ingenuity over brute force, and their ability to turn adversity into opportunity, were something their rigid minds simply could not replicate or effectively combat. Humanity did not seek blind revenge or total domination. Instead, Elias laid the groundwork for a new galactic order. He offered partnerships, but on human terms. He offered protection to oppressed races, but demanded autonomy and mutual respect. The great alien powers, seeing the determination and organizational capacity of humans, and fearing their unpredictability, had no choice but to bow. Negotiations were held, treaties were signed, and, one by one, the empires that had forgotten humanity now found themselves paying respect to it again. Humanity's floating cities shone again. New fleets, designed with the ingenuity that only humans possessed, patrolled the star routes. But this time, there was a crucial difference. The memory of the fall, of the near extermination, was alive. The new humanity was more cautious, more aware of its own fragility and the importance of cooperation. They were conquerors, yes, but they were also innovators, explorers, and, above all, guardians of a legacy that was almost lost. Elias Vance, though still a symbol, receded into the shadows, knowing his task was complete. Humanity was back in its rightful place among the stars, no longer a threat to be remembered, but a force to be respected. The cosmos, which had tried to erase our existence, was now forced to bow again to the indomitable will of a species that refused to be forgotten. The story of humanity would continue, written no longer in secrets, but in light. The flame of the Phoenix, once almost extinguished, now burned brighter than ever, a beacon of hope and an eternal reminder that, for humanity, the end is always just a new beginning. And so, we come to the end of an epic journey, where the most improbable of resurrections reshaped the destiny of an entire galaxy. The story of Elias Vance and the hidden children of the stars is not just a science fiction saga, it is a mirror of the very essence of humanity. A testament that, even in the depths of despair, our ingenuity, our adaptability, and our unbreakable will to survive can lead us to overcome any obstacle, to the point of making the cosmos itself bow. What did you take away from this journey? What does humanity's return to glory mean to you? Is our ability to reinvent ourselves and overcome insurmountable challenges our true mark on the universe? Leave your reflections in the comments, as your perspective is a fundamental part of our community. If you felt inspired by this narrative of rebirth and overcoming, don't forget to like this video, share it with all your sci-fi loving friends, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future journeys through the wonders of the universe. Embrace the human spirit, because in the vast and unknown cosmos, our story is far from over.